Hurricane Irma was the 9th named storm of the 2017 hurricane season and was the strongest storm to strike any of the Leeward Islands since at least 1780, and the most intense storm recorded on the Lesser Antilles, marginally eclipsing a hurricane in 1825. Irma was officially tied second strongest hurricane in the North Atlantic, tied third on Force 13's database, and tied 12th most intense, or 13th on Force 13's database. Irma caused catastrophic damage across the Lesser Antilles, Turks and Caicos Islands, Cuba and Florida in September 2017. The text version of this report is available online, compiled by Nathan Foy and Cesar Gamez. On August 26th, a new tropical disturbance formed over the center of the African continent, moving generally towards the southwest until leaving land on the 27th, entering the Atlantic Ocean. Gradual organization took place on the disturbance, showing signs of a circulation that became progressively better defined in the following days. The disturbance presented spiral bandings and a closed center of circulation on August 30th, and based on satellite observations it was classified as Tropical Storm Irma by the National Hurricane Center. Shortly after being named, the storm underwent a period of rapid intensification as an anticyclone appeared above the system, as well as a central dense overcast and the appearance of an eye. At one stage, Irma was a 70-mile-an-hour tropical storm, and in a mere 12 hours it became a Category 3 major hurricane with winds of 115 miles per hour on August 31st. Irma was the first major hurricane to form east of 35 West since Hurricane Julia of 2010. Officially, the hurricane attained an initial peak intensity of 120 miles per hour and a pressure of 964 millibars on September 1st at 5 p.m. AST, before starting to weaken due to an eyewall replacement cycle. At the same time, a strengthening subtropical ridge was pushing Irma to the west-southwest. Irma kept moving to the west-southwest as its intensity kept fluctuating between Category 2 and 3 due to several more eyewall replacement cycles between September 2nd and 4th, and the first hurricane watches were issued in many areas of the Leeward Islands at 9 p.m. UTC, 5 p.m. AST on September 3rd. Irma remained small, but it was already representing a danger to those islands that had high chances of receiving serious hurricane conditions. The storm was located about 790 miles east of the Leeward Islands when the first watches were initiated. By the morning of September 4th, Irma found extremely favorable conditions and started a new phase of rapid intensification as it started to move towards the west. Hurricane warnings began to be issued in the Lesser Antilles, and a hurricane watch in Puerto Rico at 11 a.m. AST, around 560 miles east of the Leeward Islands by this point. The storm's structure improved gradually on the next day, becoming more circular and symmetric on the satellite imagery, with cloud tops of -75 Celsius and a clear symmetric eye of 20 nautical miles, confirming that Irma reached Category 5 hurricane status, with winds of 175 miles per hour verified by reconnaissance planes, but an unusually high pressure of 929 millibars. Irma also presented annular characteristics as it continued to approach the islands. Further intensification occurred, and Irma attained its peak wind speed of 185 miles per hour by the afternoon. The powerful hurricane remained with winds of 180 miles per hour or higher for 48 hours in total. During that time, the storm made landfall in Barbuda at peak intensity, and then went on to strike St. Martin and the British Virgin Islands at or near the same intensity. Irma marginally eclipsed a hurricane in 1825 to become the most intense storm to make landfall on any of the Lesser Antilles, and is the strongest since at least the Great Hurricane of October 1780. Irma passed north of Puerto Rico and Hispaniola, bringing hurricane-force winds to those islands as it weakened slightly due to another eyewall replacement cycle, but maintained Category 5 status as it was moving through the Turks and Caicos Islands. By September 7th, hurricane and storm surge watches and warnings were issued in Florida, and Cuba saw hurricane warnings being issued, and Irma's eye passed very close to Great Inagua Island at that point. By September 8th, Irma was nearing the coast of Cuba. Having weakened to Category 4 intensity for a short while, it briefly re-intensified to become a Category 5 storm before making another landfall on Cayo Romano. Despite hugging the coast of Cuba for 2 days, it maintained borderline Category 4 intensity as it progressed towards the Florida Keys, striking Big Pine Key on September 10th. It made its final landfall in the latter part of the day on Marco Island, south of Naples. Irma continued to move north while affecting Florida and neighboring states, and weakened rapidly due to increasing wind shear. By September 12th, Irma moved over Georgia, Alabama, and eventually towards Tennessee, becoming a huge remnant low eventually, merging with a frontal system over Newfoundland. Here is the best track analysis from Force 13, using Force 13 SATOPS primarily, a tool which uses infrared satellite imagery and cloud temperatures to estimate a storm's wind speed and air pressure. However, it also factors in the Air Force Reconnaissance Plane's observations and does not take precedence over those observations and indeed surface observations. Here is the track chart showing the storm's progression throughout its whole entire life, from its beginnings in Central Africa to its termination over the United States. Irma was monitored by the National Hurricane Center in Miami, Florida, and was observed by the US Navy with their ATCF system. Below shows comparisons between all of those agencies and Force 13's best track, highlighted in red. The ATCF operational was done during the storm's lifetime, but they also issued a post-track shortly after the storm's dissipation. All of those are represented here. Irma's eye passed directly over Barbuda, St. Barthélemy, St. Martin, and the British Virgin Islands in the Leeward Islands, with the centre of the eye making landfall on Barbuda, St. Martin, southern Virgin Gorda, and northern Tortola. Additionally, Irma's eye also moved over parts of the Turks and Caicos Islands, grazed the coast of Cuba, the middle Florida Keys, and made its final landfall on Marco Island. At the time of this report, the damages from the storm were still being assessed. However, suffice to say that the damages in Barbuda, St. Martin, and the British Virgin Islands were catastrophic, with total damage for some areas and the potential for some of these islands to become uninhabitable as a result. The minimum recorded pressure in Puerto Rico reached 952 millibars in Culebra, with nearby stations reporting sustained winds of up to 107 miles per hour. Nearly 16 inches of rain fell in the US Virgin Islands and up to 13 inches in Puerto Rico. In Florida, the highest rainfall was nearly 16 inches at Fort Pierce, along with state maxima of 10.1 inches at Kingsland, Georgia, 8.7 inches in Charleston, South Carolina, 6.1 inches in Busick, North Carolina, and 4.7 inches at West Point, Alabama. Peak wind speed gusts reach 142 miles per hour near Naples, 130 miles per hour at Marco Island, 99 miles per hour at Key Biscayne and Miami International Airport, with hurricane force gusts being recorded in one place elsewhere in the United States outside of Florida, at Paris Island, South Carolina. Data for other countries is as yet unknown. The next part of this report shows the track and intensity forecast errors from the computer models and the National Hurricane Center. The intensity error charts show how many miles per hour the model predictions were from the observed intensity 2 and 5 days later. A value of 0 denotes a perfectly accurate prediction. Negative values correspond to predictions lower than the observation, and positive values show predictions higher than the observation. The full data can be accessed in the text version of this report, but on the video we will read out the overall 2 and 5 day intensity errors combined per model and how well they did. The National Hurricane Center had an average error of 24.2 after 77 predictions. The HMON model had an average error of 29.1 after 93 predictions, The HWRF had an average error of 25.1 after 93 predictions. The Ship for 5-Day model had an average error of 40.8 after 93 predictions. The Ship's model had an average error of 27.8 after 93 predictions. And the CTCX model had an average error of 25.6 after 89 predictions. Therefore, the best model was the HWRF, although the National Hurricane Center's average error was lower. The 2- and 5-day track error averages are also depicted here. The National Hurricane Center's average error was 1.2 after 43 predictions. The HWRF had an average error of 2.5 after 90 predictions. The HMON 2.8 after 90 predictions. The GFS 2.5 after 90 predictions. The NavGem 2.9 after 84 predictions. And the CTCX 3.6 after 86 predictions. Therefore, the best model for track was a tie between the HWRF and the GFS, although the National Hurricane Center outperformed any of those models by double. The Cyclone Destruction Potential Scale, or CDPS, is a new way of measuring cyclone impacts in a more meaningful way. For the past 45 years, storms worldwide have been measured using the Saffir-Simpson hurricane wind scale, split into 5 categories. However, this scale measures wind alone and does not correlate well with actual impacts on land measured by monetary damage. The CDPS measures other factors, such as storm size and forward speed, as well as intensity, to create a 10-tiered scale that encompasses tropical storms as well as hurricanes. Irma reached CDPS Stage 9, described in the scale as a superstorm that may cause total damage. It is also worth pointing out at what stage the storm was during its landfalls. For all the Lesser Antilles landfalls, Irma was a Stage 9, the maximum that it reached. For the Turks and Caicos, it was Stage 7 or 8. For Cuba, at the first landfall, it was Stage 8, dropping to 7 as it continued along the coast. And for Florida, it was also a Stage 7 for the Florida Keys, and Stage 5 just after it made its final landfall. Force 13 issued 20 hours of live coverage, 37 recorded updates in English, and 8 recorded updates in Spanish on Hurricane Irma. The videos received a 95% approval rating overall. Comments, suggestions, and inquiries should be directed to contact@force13.co.uk or any of Force 13's online platforms. The full report is available online at force13.com/11l.pdf.